join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence as we think about our troops who are overseas serving, those who are still active and those who have passed. Thank you very much. The first item is that I want to remind people who might be watching that this meeting is being recorded, but it's going out on the internet, and anyone can join the meeting in terms of if they have a question to pose, they can certainly send that in, and then our media person from All Media Productions will transmit that question to us, and we can view them during at the end of the meeting or during public comment if they come in soon enough. We have public comment. Is there anybody here just for public comment? I don't see anybody who's putting forward, so with that, I would say that we could start with the Cape Cod Water Resources Restoration Project update, and the members of the CRC Executive Committee. Now, is that also you? I guess that's all you, right?
Yes, you're all here.
It's good to see you. Which one of you, bright lights of environmental protection want to represent the group?
What is the question?
One of you have to draw straws. As many as two can come forward.
Three of you, if you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
And I can move too.
Right.
I can move as well.
Come on, sure. And if you would, John, you're going to sit.
Oh, okay.
Come on out.
Thank you, why not?
Okay. And would you be kind enough to identify yourself for the camera? Yeah. Come on.
I'm Charlie.
Weird, I'll just have to look in between.
I'm Charlie McCaffrey, and I'm your representative on the Coastal Resources Committee.
We've got no complaints.
I'm Steve McKenna. I'm the co-chair, the newly elected co-chair of the Coastal Resources Committee.
Don't look on that as more privilege, but more responsibility.
Well, I'll give you a little background. I wasn't at the meeting where I was nominated. That'll teach you not to be there.
That's how I became the chapter chairman of the Electrical Engineering Society. Yes, John.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone. Donald Liptak, Natural Resources Conservation Service here in Hyannis. I'm also a member of the Coastal Resource Committee Executive Group. Thank you.
I'm Lee Davis, Chairman of the Cape Cod Conservation District, one of the major sponsors with your support of these projects.
Welcome all. And
Joanne Muramoto.
I'm Joanne Muramoto. I work for the Association to Preserve Cape Cod as the Mass-Based Program Regional Coordinator for Cape Cod, and I'm the staff for the Coastal Resources Committee.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Great. Well, we just wanted to give you an update on this great project and fill you in on the work that's underway, that's ongoing, that will continue and finish up by December of this year. And then give you an update on sort of the status, what the funding looks like as well for hopefully another phase of the project. I want to also give you specifically an update on the CRC's role in it. The Coastal Resource Committee's role, they've been part of the project since its inception, when the planning began for it. Initially, geez, that was probably 8 years ago, maybe?
It's 10.
Yeah, 10 years ago. Working with the individual towns to identify projects, help them get them included in the plan. But then, since 2009, when the plan was approved, the CRC's role has become more significant. At that point, CRC worked with the individual towns to look at those projects that were part of the plan, update some of those, because some of those were out of date, some of the priorities had changed, and the role of the project had expanded a little bit to include salt marsh restoration and fish run restoration, as well as stormwater work. And at that point, the CRC, the membership changed a little bit. We tried to get a more technical group of appointees as part of the committee, and the role at that point was to help vet the projects and to help develop a screening criteria within our CS to look at this universe of projects and make the selections for those that would be funded under the first round. And we really wanted to put a lot of thought into that and make it a very thoughtful, open process so that communities knew why projects were funded, and those that weren't funded, they understood why and gave them some ideas to help them work towards hopefully future funding for their projects. So that's where we are right now. This CRC executive role has done a lot of this work, and now we're at a point we're looking at hopefully a phase 2. And we're going to begin looking again at the selection criteria, those things that were used, and see how well that worked in the first round, and think about sort of the project in its next phase. So everything's been working well. The members have been extremely helpful, been the liaison between their individual communities, and I think NRCS has valued the work that this committee has done to date. So as far as the progress on the individual projects, Dawn's going to fill you in on all those and talk about where they're at, where we're going. And then finally, we're going to ask you folks for a letter of support for the projects to be sent to federal legislators in hopes of continued funding for the project.
Thanks, Steve. John, do you have any more opening words?
No, not at this time. No.
Okay, thank you. Good. I'd like to also defer to Lee Davis, Chairman of the District. Lee?
Well, I'm very much impressed with the fact that these projects are well underway at the moment for the amount of money that we have. And I would like also to point out that I think many of the projects, when they're completed, will add to the tourist people who come here. They'll be able to see the runs and to see the activities that go on. So it's an adjunct not only for the outline of the letter that's been posted, or to be posted, but it gives everybody an opportunity to see the natural resources of Cape Cod in a new light, and so that the visitors can come and through the National Seashore, but other places also. One of the spots which I'm very much interested in is Paynes Creek down near the museum in Brewster, and I remember that quite fondly for many years when I was director of the museum. It was a very excellent place, and that's one of the areas which will be restored and by these projects. So it's really very, very nice, and I'm so happy, proud actually, that we can give ourselves these opportunities to enhance our natural resources and improve the quality of life for those who live here on the Cape. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate our support groups on either side, the CRC, your board, the district, every town, exemplary support right from the start. It makes my life so much easier on this planning process when I have this kind of wave of energy behind me, and when there's questions that come up from each town and each town representative deals with those questions and or complaints. It's just wonderful because the decisions are not perceived that way by the federal government. We are acting on a locally led process, which is we received national recognition for that. Lee and I went down to Florida a few years ago and received a reward because of that locally led process. It takes more time. Consensus building is not easy, as we all know, but it's a quality effort, and we will continue to do that with Steve and Charlie's help and all the towns, commission, and the district. So I just wanted to mention that quickly because it's so valuable. Okay, thank you. Part of our outreach program provides glossy colored sheets, so I'd like to provide you with this right now. Those are going to be updated constantly. That is a little dated right now. We also have, for those that are computer savvy, which I'm not, Twitter and tweets and Facebook information. So check it out. I don't know how to get there, but it's all on the computers, and apparently they're getting a lot of hits and good replies from that. In the interest of time, County Commissioners, I wanted to just briefly talk about the projects, and I'm doing this in a very cursory sense because your time is valuable, and I don't think there's any value in going into specific details unless there are questions about sites. So with that being said, I'm going to just pick through the 3 resource areas that we're working on. I'm going to start with the anadromous fishways, the fish passages, as we all know. We have 5 sites that were funded in this phase for construction. Okay. 4 right now are in the design phase and permitting phase, anywhere from 25% to 85% complete in design. We do have 1 site, the Santua Pond site in Mashpee, which involves the rebuilding of a dam. The dam is an integral part of the fishway, and because it's a dam and a hazardous class breaching potential. That's involved a lot more hydrologic research. That one's going to be delayed as far as implementing and starting construction on that. And actually, a lot of these fishways will probably carry over into calendar year 2012. What we will do probably in May or June, probably more like June, I will have to amend all the agreements with the towns, which, as Steve stated, must be constructed by the end of 2011, and amend those to some date. We're thinking probably September 2011 as the outside date to get these done. That's the reality. It's just taking time. And again, for all those reasons I said before, consensus building, permitting, surprises, nothing's ever easy. We will get a substantial amount of work done by the end of this calendar year, but there will be a piece of it that will have to go on beyond that cutoff date. We do have the okay nationally to do that with the proper justification and documentation, which we have, so we should be all right. We're also working on a couple of fishways in what we call the technical assistance realm, which we're providing hydrologic analysis, survey, and flow data for Pilgrim Lake design, and also for Johns Pond and Mashpee design. So we have 6 of those fishways in the works. Again, all phase 1 funding from our 2009 appropriation. For the salt marshes, our second resource area, we have 4 sites in the construction phase currently. Again, those are in the design phases and or permitting phase, but we do have one site that has been officially completed. That is the Sunken Meadow Salt Marsh Restoration Site on the Eastham Wellfleet town line of the town. It's in actually the town of Eastham. That went seamlessly and very well with the town's assistance on that. It's quite. I wish I would have taken my pictures over, but the rain would have really wrecked my little board that I had there, so I'm sorry I couldn't do that, because it's a nice before and after situation. 610 feet of earth and berm was removed, brought down to grade level on the existing salt marsh. And that now floods twice a day, and with the high moon tides, that gets way up in there. So that whole 16-acre of marsh up in there now is being flooded off of Sunken Meadow, Ben's Way, that whole area up in there. Beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It's an optimal situation for our remediation situation. Most of these, as you know, are going to go with pulling out of an old culvert, replacing it with a larger size orifice. And we simply cannot remove the obstruction totally because there's some roadway, right-of-way, something on top that people need to maintain. This is one of the unique ones where we had the chance and the luxury to remove the whole dike. It's gorgeous. And actually tomorrow afternoon, Lee and the district are hosting a state commission. All the state commissioners and district supervisors from around the state are coming to our office, and we're going to tour tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully the weather improves.
Yes.
And that's going to be our #1 stop, and we're going to go through the Lower Cape and show some of the other sites that are in progress. The other salt marshes, as I said, are under construction and permit. They will be on the line for that 2011 construction, but they are moving quite well with viable progress, so we feel good about those. We're also doing, under the technical assistance study type category, which we also had funding for into this phase, Muddy Creek, Parkers River, Mayo Creek, and Old County Marsh up in Truro. Those 4 sites now are being studied for low property mitigations, make sure there's no flooding and impacts that way. Hydrologic modeling, we want to know what's going to happen with various floods and various orifices that we're providing for, and also tide studies. So that's all in the works, very exciting. And our 2 hired district employees, Abigail Franklin for the fishways and Martha Reinhardt, have been so helpful and instrumental with great energy, just pushing, almost to a fault. Towns are calling me saying, "Who are these young people? Get them off my back." I said, "No, they're going to come at you." So they've been great. The stormwater component, which is, as you know, about 50% of all the work that we're doing, and the reason that this program really got going in the initial phases, is moving quite well. I expect Brewster and Orleans to start construction for their stormwater sites within a month. 5 sites in Orleans, 2 in Brewster, of which Lee mentioned earlier, Paynes Creek and also Saints Landing. One little glitch I want to mention about, not a glitch, but a process that we must go through that has raised a little bit of a flag, a yellow flag. Of these 7 sites in Brewster and Orleans, it's worth mentioning this if I'm taking the time to do this, we have hired, as any federal undertaking, we must do a cultural resource assessment. And we did a preliminary assessment with the Public Archaeological Laboratory from from Rhode Island, and they deemed that of those 7 sites, 5 warrant monitoring during construction because of their sensitivity. They just everything about the sites, as far as historic and what they saw on site, warrants someone there to be there to watch construction. Documented authority eyes. So each town, I just contacted Mr. Kelly from Orleans and Mr. Sumner from Brewster. We have funds to help pay for that extra assessment. That's in the contract. I mean, it wasn't like every town needed it, but there's a little bit of a fudge factor there for that. If it runs over, I will seek funds to help them with that. I don't want to burden them with extra funds in this situation with budgets right now. But it's necessary. Otherwise, they cannot turn over one shovelful full of soil without that cultural resource person on site.
Can I ask a question about
Please.
that?
Please.
When you're talking about cultural resource assessment, what is the range of those assessments? I mean, are they? It's for anything that is where federal funds are being used. So if you were to do that assessment, what would be the range of those assessments? You know what I mean?
You mean like the extent of where we're doing the digging? You mean?
Well, no, not the detail of it, but for instance, when you say cultural resource assessment,
Oh, okay.
that's any project that you're doing that relates to a coastal area?
Any project that disturbs original soil with federal assistance requires its review processes. Public Law 106 it's called. And the question I thought you were asking was, there's 2 things. There's historic value, and then there's the pre-contact value, which is the tribal resources as well. Some of these sites have one or the other or both. Okay, in those reviews we had Chucky Green from the district, who's a supervisor, as well as a tribal historic preservation officer with us. Some of those are very sensitive for tribal. Then there's the historic component, which one of our fishways has. If you know Borndale site, the Carter Beal Dam, the Holway Axe Factory, that's a historic site. Okay, the tribes don't care about that. That's close contact, but it's important from the state historic preservation side of things. So we also have to consider that as well.
So this person who's on site is basically there when the area has been deemed that not all of your projects are as sensitive, may not be deemed as sensitive. So those projects require this person to be on site. And so if they see some sort of archaeological discovery, hold the shovels so that we can see what this is, or to make sure that they're not just ripping away natural lands that have been undisturbed since the beginning of time or since we...
Right, sure. Their trained eyes,
right?
as I understand it, are looking for any type of aberration in the soil that is indicative of a cultural resource find.
Okay.
As I said, either historic or tribal.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Once they see that, yes, stop the buckets. They go back with their little shovels. They dig, and it's either okay or we need to mitigate.
Right.
And in the case of these stormwater sites, which are site-specific, putting dry wells in the ground, we'll move that dry well over 50 feet, and hopefully there's nothing there.
Right.
We can work around it.
Right.
But we don't want to disturb something. We can't do it.
Right.
Period.
Right.
So that's the process. That's a little extra thing that came out, and we have quite a few sites on the Cape that are quite sensitive. So we've excluded the sites that don't need review, but then we have that.
Right. And a lot of these are going on at the same time, so you need several of these people, not just one to go from site to site.
Exactly. So the public
Right.
archaeological lab has about 4 staffers over there that can be hired. And they're aware of it. They've been out here, so we've done all the preliminary work, which is what we need to do up front. So that's what we're up against right now.
So what is your shortfall on that, do you think? If you have some funds, if the towns, what is the difference?
The estimate is about $1,000 a day on a site to monitor this. Now, most of these sites will require only 1 day of monitoring. So it shouldn't build up into a week-long type thing.
Yeah.
So we're looking at probably a couple grand maybe,
Okay.
roughly per site, per town. Hopefully we'll have enough funding to cover it.
Right.
Anyway, just wanted to mention.
Do you have anything else?
Yes, we had you digress.
I'm pretty much done, Bill. The rest of the sites are about 85% done. Saquatucket, Weechmere, all this, right across the Cape. We're pretty much in good shape, so we're on schedule. A couple of those stormwater sites will roll over to 212, but I'd say at least half to 75% will be done by the end of this calendar year.
Great.
So with that, I think I'm through with my...
Okay. You had something to add?
Joanne Noromoto, if I may point out, I believe the total number of stormwater construction sites is 18, which demonstrates the focus of the program on remediating stormwater in order to open up or protect shellfish beds. I think it's at least 18
Right.
sites, plus maybe a few more projects that are in the planning or engineering design phase. Is that correct, Alan?
Right, well, it's 19, actually. 19.
19,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
So, thank you for reminding me on that.
That's
So,
really good.
Did anybody have any further questions? Okay, I had a couple of comments, especially since you talked about signing off on a letter to go to the federal representatives. You have the great good fortune of having our current congressman having a house in Bourne, and I noticed that you have a sign here that says this is going on in Bourne. I believe there's another one on this side. There's also Bourne sites, and I would be remiss if I didn't suggest that you remind him that all of this stuff is going on in the town that he lives in. Having said that, I want to say that many times I have looked at or brought up the point about the beach at the end of Electric Avenue in Bourne on Buttermilk Bay and pointed out as you stand there and look off Cape, you see paving down to the water at the marina, that's directly across from there. And I remind people that when you go across Cohasset Narrows and you're interested in what I would call economic development of the type that they get in Plymouth County, that they only have to look at the 3 junkyards and the the Save-More gas station, as you go by, plus the the paving, to recognize the difference and the contribution, the tangible contribution that's been made by by the work that you've done. I've had the pleasure of having the tours in time past, and perhaps next summer when the weather gets better, you would invite all of us, to let's say to take a look at those types of things. But I want to thank you very much for for the work that you're doing. I personally, I guess you just want to sign an attaboy letter.
well, can I make one
well,
more
It's the fun
comment on
huge issue next
yeah.
year.
I have one closing comment on the budget situation, which will lead in perfectly to the CRC's request. As you know, this Phase 1 funding, $6.5 million, was obligated back in February. We got the $1.5 million extra. There is obviously, and relative to what you said about our congressmen, they have called quite extensively with their staffers. Ex-Commissioner Lance Lambros as well has been all over this. A lot of support from the congressman, and the transition's been quite seamless from Congressman Delahunt's shop. The point is now is that FY11 is a done deal. There's no funding for the watershed's operation. This funding was strictly under the Recovery Act money. We'll never see that again. We were hoping to get the watershed program funded under normal conventional circumstances. It's zero funded right now. There will be no money right now in FY11 to do any more. The coalition, of which Joanne's group has been leading, has been fighting to look for, they've buried their energies on FY11. They're hoping that FY12 can provide some daylight and some opportunities for funding to maintain our program in the future. Right now, we're going to go through this $6.5 million. There's nothing in the future right now. So that leads in perfectly to the letter because of the coalition's efforts to get that local support and the leadership as well to provide support for looking into the FY12 process.
Yeah, so we have to point out the seriousness of no funding, that we're making progress, and you might as well just take the other money and throw it away if we can't continue on with the other
Inertia
side.
is a terrible thing to let start over again.
Yes.
I think the process that led to this was a long process, thorough planning, reflecting strong intermunicipal cooperation, strong cooperation with the federal agency, and the state agencies also have been actively involved providing good technical assistance, particularly on the fish passage and the marsh restoration. So it's an exemplary approach that reflects intermunicipal, intergovernmental, based on sound planning. And that's why we think it's still worthy of support by Congress. We know these are difficult times. So we've drafted a letter that for your consideration that outlines the benefits of the program that would be sent to our congressional delegation, the 2 senators and Congressman Keating, to indicate your support and recognition that this is the type of effort that reflects how government should function cooperatively, and with each level putting in resources. The towns are putting in a substantial amount of resources to match this.
Is that all
So-
reflected in your letter?
Yes.
Now, you are a representative on this group, and so you're asking us to take a look at that letter.
Yes.
And we take it under advisement,
Yes.
review it, and after we've done that, I think we'd be happy to.
Yes, absolutely.
Do what we
You-
could.
Were they given a copy already, or?
Should we,
Oh, we were?
maybe we should send a copy to
Here's a draft. You will,
Cantor and
Well, Senator Kerry.
we'll send
and Boehner
a,
as well.
Joanne will send a electronic version to you.
Joanne, could you send it to me?
that-
And I guess on that, I just want to make sure the commissioners meet on Wednesdays for signing. So can this wait till next Wednesday, or is this something that we should do this afternoon? I can quickly have somebody type it and turn
No,
it
I think-
around.
No, next
Yeah,
Wednesday. This,
right.
Okay.
as Don said, this year's funding is not
Is done.
in question, and we can hope in these difficult times that as
Yeah, I'll give you my
all
card.
political sides focus on the bigger picture of where we need fiscal discipline, this smaller area that really gives benefits for not a lot of money can begin to move forward as they focus on the big picture, not so much the small area of discretionary domestic spending.
Well, in any case, I think that our next step would be to accept your draft, review it over the week, and then next week we could have a vote to send it out.
We'll get it out there.
So if that's acceptable, what?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely,
there.
absolutely.
Very good.
And so Maggie, would you make?
I'll work on that, make sure everybody gets it electronically, and then any edits you can send to me.
Okay.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
We'll have it ready for next week.
Yes, Lee.
I would like to point out that in matter of public relations, each of these projects will have a very private display, and we're not quite sure whether it'll be in a case or whether it'll be on the board or whatever, but we're developing a display for each and every one of these things, which some of them are very, very elegant, and will outline what's there and add to the process of having people understand what's going on. So I think that's very important as a PR type of thing.
Okay.
So Lee, before you leave, perhaps you should share with Sheila some of your adventures in Iceland last year. So she can
I'm going to Iceland on Sunday.
Oh, you are?
Yes, for 5
Well,
days.
Right, for 5 days?
Yes.
Iceland is a really wonderful place, especially if you're a geologist or a glaciologist, either way.
Well, I'm neither, but I'm interested in those things, so I'm going to go and look at
Yeah,
them
yeah.
and learn about them and
Geothermal, hotspot of the world.
Geothermal.
yes, almost all of their power is from the geothermal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's a really amazing place. So
Try to get to the Blue Lagoon, it's quite a place.
I booked.
God bless you.
That's going to be my splurge on myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be, tromping the countryside and through the city and.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very
it's-
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Blue Lagoon. That's where I'm going to finally give myself a treat.
Well, very good luck. Let us know how you,
No, it's like it's going to be snowing and about 26 degrees. I saw on the projected forecast. So, but those baths are nice and warm. I hear so. I'll spend as much time there as I
I
can.
tell everybody it's hotter here in the summer than it is in Iceland, and it's warmer there in the winter than it is here.
Yes.
So Iceland's temperatures are just about like ours.
You didn't happen to go in the winter when there's the Northern Lights and Aurora Borealis?
I have seen the Northern Lights, and yes, I did. We were there to welcome 2000.
Oh, how
So we were
wonderful.
there for a New Year's party, which was extraordinary.
I bet.
The largest New Year's party I've ever been to, and one I expect to ever go to, because we were in the middle of Reykjavik. They have a hotel, a rotary, restaurant. They call it Perlin, and it's between all of the tanks. There are 5 tanks of 60,000 gallons of hot water, and so this restaurant is built in between.
Yes.
And we were looking at Reykjavik from this restaurant. they were setting it all, I said they set Reykjavik on fire.
Oh.
There was fireworks everywhere.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, good luck.
Before you go, could you repeat that website where people could find more information?
Let's get the website.
I do.
I don't.
I must read it though.
Rattled off here.
Can anyone see it on the sheet there? It should be there.
I think it's www.capecodcd.org.
Yes, that's for the Conservation District.
Okay, and then
And
there's
the
the
natural-
the Natural Resources, Conservation Division is ma.nrcs.usda.gov. That's an USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Yes.
Yes.
That would be the one, Bill, yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
so it's www.ma.nrcs.usda.gov. So the easiest thing to do would be if you Google USDA Natural Resources, you'd find it.
It doesn't exactly trip off the tongue, does it?
Yeah.
And Cape Cod Water Resources Project, yeah.
Yes, the Cape Water,
That's
yes.
the sub.
Well, thank you
Very
very
good.
much for
Thanks
coming.
again.
Well, thank you so much. You're doing lots of great work out there.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank
Do you
you.
want some names, or you got your schedule all done?
Well, kind of. I'll have to talk to you offline. If you want to write down a couple of restaurants or something that you can really recommend or
Okay.
to do, you have to grab it off from Maggie because we're still. But thank you, Lee. Maybe I'll give you a call. All righty.
Some Euro.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Lee.
We appreciate the opportunity and your support.
Well, thank you, Lee, for everything.
Okay,
Moving right along.
we're planning for communication visits with boards of selectmen. I think I mentioned that it was important for us to start planning for when we should visit them. You may recall that at the assembly meeting, one of the delegates had mentioned that she thought it was important for us to visit with the boards of selectmen, but also make available the completed, not just the one for the town, but to the assembly to make a copy of what we give to each of the towns available to all of the assembly members, so that they could, they could have it to refer to, so they could see what was going on in the other towns as well. And I think that, as we start looking at this, in time past, we used to make a summary of specific actions within a particular community, and we'd use that as the basis of our visit. And we would give a summary of that with the presumption that the selectmen would have read what we'd submitted ahead of time. If they had any questions, we could respond to it. And then my plan was to give just to have us give a summary of sort of condensing what we were presenting to the town. And then at that point, to get some feedback from the selectmen with regard to, these are the things that we have done, these are the things that we have proposed, and we are trying to find out what we could count on for support going forward, and what their opinion was with regard to things that we should perhaps not be doing anymore. And in past time, I had never been at a Board of Selectmen meeting where they said, cut this out. So I take that as consent for, and if not support, for what we've been doing on their behalf with regard to regional programs. So I would like to suggest that we have a date that we start that would be no later than the end of August and the beginning of September, which would be the time that they are not looking at budgets and setting up for town meetings, and would give us an opportunity to get their attention and to use their output, their taping and recording of meetings as an opportunity to, let's say, to talk about the programs that we're doing.
Well, actually, that is a good time because they're going to begin to look at budgets. And if we get there at that time, before they actually get into the
After Labor Day.
Yeah,
yeah,
the beginning of September.
when they're really thinking about next year, but they're also closing their books on the previous year. in July. July 15th, I think, is usually when they close the books. And then they're thinking about next year, and they have some information in front of them to see what last year was like. And then we could maybe ask them, if we want to talk about regional issues, maybe we should think about each community and send them something ahead of time in terms of regional planning, that we say, this is what we'd like to talk with you about. And maybe then they could be prepared to engage in conversation instead of just coming and saying, well, let's talk about this, when they're not really prepared. And I'm sure that's what you had in mind.
Well, I couldn't have said it better.
Yes.
Okay, Sheila, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, we did this the first year we were elected, and I think we did it with Maggie and Paul at that time, because we were doing a lot of it different, and Mark, to answer any questions, where we, it was the Cape Light Compact. We were trying to combine the green, looking at the Green Communities Act,
Right.
and how we could maximize benefits from that as a whole. And I think their tours are already gone. He's already on the road, so he does that from the beginning. He's probably going to be done by the time we're starting. But it wouldn't be bad to hear from them, on the whole. I mean, I think it's a very good time to have a dialogue with boards of selectmen, with their towns. Not just about, here's what we do for you, what else do we, but really just engage as to our working relationships with each other, so.
And what our priorities are, and whether or not they meet their priorities, and what do they want from us.
Well,
But to give them something ahead of time,
Yeah.
give them an agenda ahead of time, so that they know what we want to talk
But
about.
also, there's for
Yeah.
them to see that we see them as part of a whole, not necessarily always. I mean, we see them as individual towns, but we're there addressing needs that cross their border, and we're there to discuss those types of issues that would fit across their border, and and how is that going? I think it's a good opportunity and worthwhile, and it's overdue for us.
And I'm hopeful that, and one of the reasons why I believed that we should have delayed it until this time was that we were, I'm hopeful of getting information back from this analysis of our operational activities. I'm also hopeful that when we have that in hand, we could be talking as what you're suggesting as to what we foresee as a potential change in our organization, and at that time we should also have some, what I'd call some progress report with regard to the special commission that we're setting up. And to me, it's engaging them in a communications process where we're not waiting till the end as much as we're trying to keep them advised as we're moving forward.
Right. It's as much a listening tour as it is information.
And we probably want to ask for a half an hour, maybe at least a half
Okay,
an hour.
and that's
Yeah.
why I think it's
Which is
important to start scheduling that now, since
early.
we're looking for that kind of time. So what I would ask staff to do, if you've heard some of our thoughts here, that you could perhaps put the outline of a, let's say, of a plan together, where they, and essentially start the scheduling process and reach out to the towns to say what we're trying to do, and identify times that would be available, and the window would be to be useful would be from the time that we start to the time we end. We try to contain it hopefully within a short period of time, like 6 to no longer than 8 weeks, so that we can do that. So I would hope we would start in September and end by the end of October, so that we're not interfering with elections and
There'll be a lot of evenings. I just want to
Well,
remind
there are
everybody
no
evenings.
elections in November.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
evenings.
Yeah, I know
this
they're all
year.
evenings. That sounds
So that's good.
Can I just have a question, because I heard a couple of things. I will have Kara start working on the schedule for you. As far as what you want to deliver, because this has to come from the department heads, I thought I heard two things. We had which is what I think you were asked for, a town services report.
Right.
Yes.
So each department head was asked to prepare town by town services that you've provided in the fiscal year that just ended. So that will be July 1, 2010 through June 30th, 2011.
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so because I
And
have
that
That's
goes
one
to
piece
them.
of
That
it,
gets
yeah.
sent
Right,
to
and
them.
then the
Right.
other pieces I heard, so I will bring that up at our May meeting and have to give them a heads up that they need to start working on that.
Okay.
And that would coincide with us generating our annual report, which is supposed to be due in, I believe,
They're
by the 1st of October.
different, that's why they're different. The annual report has a lot more verbiage, text, and is structured. The town services report is 182 audits were conducted,
Right. Yes.
served, blah, blah, blah. It's more of, what did you do? Return $300,000 in grant funds to the community, wrote a grant, that type of stuff. Because and then you talk from some of it, like you've done in the past. So I'll have staff, department heads start to pull that together.
That'd be great.
They will do that, typically they'll do it, start working on it in July, and it'll be available by the middle of August.
Perfect.
All right, so that's essentially the substance of what I wanted to bring out in order to introduce the topic and start progress.
And to add, Bill mentioned it, some of the assembly members want a copy of that as a whole, like all towns.
Right, what I will do,
Make
like
sure
we did,
one doesn't get more than
is once a town is scheduled, I will have Kara inform the delegate in that town when it's there, and they can get a copy of all the reports.
And then about 3 weeks before the meeting, we should send out some sort of, to each town, to each
A
chairman.
reminder and.
Not a reminder, and also the topics that we would like to discuss
Right.
with them, so that they're prepared to.
And those will be more set by the time we
by
get there.
that time, we'll have a
Right.
much better idea.
Of what we wanna
As
talk
we go
about.
through the special commission and Mark Morse finishes up his stuff, that we'll have a better idea on the regionalization.
Speaking of, thank you.
Mark Morse.
Yes. How is that going? Where are we in that?
On the 5th, the last Friday, April 1st, he met with the 3 department heads that were absent. And I have not, that was April 1st.
Is he going to speak to us individually as well?
I think he was going to speak to you as a group. I didn't, but I'm not sure. I can ask, but I'm not sure. I thought he was speaking to you guys as a group, not
I think
individually.
it'd be good to talk to us individually,
Yeah.
if you would, that we could schedule a time.
Okay.
Does he have
I can
faculty
reach
in
out and have an
diocese?
update. Have Mark
Does he
give you
have
an update.
faculties in his diocese to hear my confession?
Okay.
Right.
No, but I'll be glad to grant them to him.
So starting 9/5, Labor Day is September 5th, so we'll start that week.
Okay, a topic that's related to this, because it has to do with communications, is I'd like to start thinking about some of the things that we have to do on a regular basis, which is, I can't find any evidence that we have a policy with regard to reporting. And I wondered, are we now in our reporting part, individual reports?
If you may, I do have a budget hearing at the Assembly, so I have to leave in about 5 minutes, just so you guys know, so I'll just...
I just wanted to bring up one more thing, and that's
sure.
Lyme disease.
Oh, yeah.
I think Brenda Bowen is due back from Florida sometime this month. And I know she wants to come in and
Oh,
meet with
absolutely,
us.
we do need to hear
So
from her,
we
yeah.
need to.
Do you want me to have contact Brenda when she gets back
please.
sometime?
Yeah,
She's
and
back
see-
sometime this month?
Yeah, that's a very important topic. Okay, we need to vote to, see, we have some actions to take care of. But I did want to say that I'd like us to think about our reporting schedule. I can't find any evidence that we have any policy in place since the start of the changes in the open meeting law with regard to when we report on reviews. So I wanted to let you know that as chair of the Cape Light Compact, I'd asked the executive committee and got their support that we would review executive session minutes on an annual basis at least, and then have the whole board vote on whether or not they would be published if we had not already done that. I need some advice from staff with regard to what are the minimum requirements under the open meeting law with regard to going forward, and I'd like to put that as an agenda item for our next meeting so that we can resolve this, so that we have a policy in place. So with that, I think we need to vote to approve the minutes of our previous meeting.
I move approval.
Okay.
I second.
Well, actually, they're in the whole thing.
Right.
Well, these are three separate from the needs actions, aren't they? With the way they're set up. Are they in the needs action?
Which,
Yeah, they're all in the
Okay.
needs section.
Then I'll take a motion to approve the needs action report.
I put forward that motion to
And I'll
approve.
second it.
Okay, are there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions, any negative? It is a vote. Okay, on individual reports, I already told you about the Cape Light Compact, which was a, which was not important. Do we have a report from Mark?
No, I do not have a.
And do we have a report from you?
The only thing I would like to remind both of you of, all three of you, on both your two direct reports to you. I had talked to Paul last week. We're scheduling his mid-evaluation. I had written down in August, April 6th. So I said, but we never did anything. So but that is in the process of being scheduled. And the next one and I think I spoke to Pat before, when she was still chair, about Mark's contract. So I'll do what you need me to do on both of those, but it's really, this
What is
isn't.
his contract? I mean, what
June
is his?
30th, isn't it?
It's June
No.
30th.
Yes, it is June 30th, but you missed a deadline already that I had informed you
December
guys in the
deadline.
fall.
Yeah, we knew that.
Yeah, so that's already done, but you need to start working on the next year's, because it was automatically renewed, so you will need something for the July 1, 2012 process.
Okay.
So you should,
Such as a review,
he will have his regular performance review. Well, it should be done in June, the end of June, prior to because I think his step, I'd have to pull it, is contingent upon his performance, just like Paul's is. So you should be getting ready for that to happen in June and set aside a meeting.
This year.
This year,
This
he has one, and then his contract, start that process, because according to the contract, you have a date of December 30th of the calendar year. Otherwise, it's automatically renewed. So you have a window now that will be effective for changes to July 1st,
Okay.
2012.
and that window is from now until the end of June?
Yeah, no, the end of this calendar year.
Yeah,
Oh, so,
December of this year.
Right.
okay.
All right, would you schedule a meeting with me and Mark to begin that process for the end of the fiscal year, which is the thing that's in play right now?
And Paul is coming before us for his 6-month update.
It's just a
It's
6-month.
update. You
Yeah, it's
would
just
ask him
yeah,
to
to
come
come
in
every-
6 months, and that's one of his goals. So
Yeah.
he wants to do it so that
Right.
he can say
Right.
that he's met that goal.
Right.
So I had written down, because I never would have remembered, April 6th, which was 6 months from when you asked him to come in. And I said, I mentioned that to him last week.
It was in my calendar.
Right, it was in your calendar too, so it was in mine, it popped up, and so he's working on that now. So he'll be here this month, probably the last Wednesday of the month. Well, yeah, or maybe that, but he's on it.
Do we have any other?
I have nothing else.
Before I'd ask for a meeting, for an adjournment, were there any individuals that joined the meeting?
Not today.
Okay. I would remind viewers that they can join the meeting, and if they have input that they want to offer, they certainly may offer it, and we would review it to see whether or not we can respond to it during the meeting.
idimdim.com/Barnstable County.
All right, we still have stuff to sign, so
We can sign,
can
and
sign. And how many of you are intending to go to the hearing?
I am going to be
I
there.
am. I wouldn't
Then I
miss it.
think-
If you really want to know.
I know, I wouldn't either.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is recess.
I will
And then
make a
we'll-
motion to recess, and we will adjourn ourselves over at the Assembly of Delegates, at which time, when that is over, we will be adjourned officially.
Second.
All those in
It's
favor?
good. You got to remember that one.
Favor.